Okay, here we are. How you doing, Merc? Oh, you're muted. You gotta unmute yourself.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm doing excellent. I'm having a fantastic day. How about you?
Good. And I'm noticing that finally my internet connection here is clear for the stream. So I might have something to do with how nice the weather is today. It's absolutely gorgeous outside, so less people are hogging up that Comcast bandwidth. I don't know if that's for sure what's caused it, but we've had a couple streams where we've had a bad connection, and we both kind of suspected that it might have had to do with the current global situation going on where everyone's on these stay-at-home orders. So, anyways, we've got a strong connection right now, so that's fantastic.
Excellent.
What have you been up to?
Today, woke up around 11 and I took a full hour right off the bat to go deep into meditation and do some magical work for the first hour of the day. That was really, really satisfying. And then I got up and have just sort of at a leisurely pace been spending the last 3 hours doing correspondence with community members, getting caught up on some messages I hadn't responded to, and I've been really enjoying that. It's also beautiful here. I spread some seed out for the birds and the chipmunk, and yeah, so I've just been having a fantastic day.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, Gloff. We've got Gloff here. Welcome.
Hey, Gloff.
Checking you out in the chat. Gloff is a legendary member of this community. He's been with us for a long time. So it's always nice to see him.
Yeah, he's been here from the very beginning.
Yes, that's right. And even back when I was doing more activity on my other channel, he was very active, and we had several conversations together privately. We did a couple of podcasts together. I think most of the conversations we had actually were on podcasts, but they were always pretty fun.
And actually, now that I think of it, a memory just came to mind. Back when I'd, just appeared on Andrew's channel once or twice. Both you and Gloff commented about wanting me on your channel, like to have me for a podcast, and I only felt able to do one. And so you're the one that won out on that. But I almost, I wonder if that had gone differently, if sorting myself out would be me and him.
Yeah. That would have been really interesting. I want to. Speaking of the first podcast we did together, I wonder if I could find the video on my other channel.
Oh, actually, that reminds me. I have on my personal channel, I made a playlist that's every video I appeared in. So it's got the appearances on Soul Tree, and it's got me on Grizz's channel. But when I added the Dr. Amate video to it, I noticed that I was at 99. So, and I just added the video we're doing right now to my playlist. So my private playlist of every video on YouTube I've been in, this is the 100th video.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Including all the clips and everything.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I found it. So I've got the video here of us. Let's see if I can
Was that the first time we spoke, or did we speak privately before that?
Control.
I think we.
Watching yourself.
Oops. Sorry, I accidentally started playing it. I think we spoke privately before that. I'm pretty sure. I should probably. Hey everybody, welcome. I'm looking at the chat. We've got Spencer. We've got Gloff, as we've mentioned. Undertone Man. We've got. He says, "Hey guys, I watch you guys a lot, but this is the first time I'm live. I'm excited." Yes, that's fantastic.
I am too. That's fantastic.
And we have.
Oh, and Spencer's asking. Just Spencer's asking, do you guys still stay in touch with what's his name that started the channel? Yes, I was on his a call with Andrew when Ryan texted me, and so I had to cut short my oh, there he is. Tarot for self-knowledge. That's the man himself.
Right.
And hi, Mariah. And good to see you again, Andrew.
Mariah is here. Fantastic, Andrew. Yeah, what was I gonna say? Oh, I'm getting a message from YouTube. Gusto, welcome. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. As such, viewers will experience buffering. Well, I apologize if that's the case. We have to deal with the internet connection that we have at our disposal here. But I was wondering if we could figure out a way to watch this clip of us talking 2 years ago, a little less than 2 years ago, September 16th, 2018. I think that would be kind of fun of us.
Yes, that's perfect.
Yeah, let me see
because that's the first video on my playlist, and this now is our 100th on that playlist.
100th, holy shit. Okay, so let's see if I can share audio and video on. Okay, share computer sound. Check.
And hello, Gusto. Great to see you.
Okay, here it is. Let me know if you can see it. You see that, Merc? Oh, Mercury, you froze and you're muted.
It looks like I'm going to see it in a moment.
Okay. Yeah, we're just having some internet lag here, so this might be throwing a lot at our systems at once. Oh, this doesn't look like it's working. Let's stop share. Let's try this again. Sorry, everybody. I made a mistake there. Let's see if we can try this again. Share screen 2 with audio. Sorry about that, everyone. Let's see if this works better. That should be better, I hope. Maybe. Let's see. Let's check the...
Looks like it's going to work.
Okay, let's see if it works. Sorry if it's not working, everyone, for you.
Like, to me, the victory was to go ahead and kill me. You get what I mean?
Yeah, because I'm taking the higher ground.
All right, we got to start from the beginning.
I'm running around outside.
This is hilarious.
I went around the house.
This is epic.
Not in control. It's like you're just watching yourself do something.
Yes.
It became like that. And
wow, your actual life.
Yeah, like my waking life was like that.
Crazy.
And you'll notice my microphone's all messed up because it's got that deep voice inflection.
It was like I thought I was at that point where the world had been unmade and I had to find my way through to the new world. And so I felt like I was in deep space for days. And at one point, when I just totally lost control, I went around the house and it was like I would go into a room and lock the door. So I'd lock myself into a room. Then I'd break the window, climb out the window, go around the house to another window, break it, climb inside. I'd be locking doors and then running through them to get out of the room or to get back into it. And I smashed out all the lights in the house. I have no idea why I was doing that. It was just, I was throwing my shit out the windows.
Wow.
Around, like, just completely not in control. And eventually, I'm running around outside naked, and I'm covered in blood. And it was just from a small cut in my hand, like in the window. I've never intentionally hurt myself. I've never tried to. But anyway, I'm running around outside naked, covered in blood, and this cop car pulls in. And it just so happened, I was on the edge of the highway out in the country, that cops were going by and pulled in. And when they pulled in, I was like, okay, here's the moment that I break through. And I was certain that the devil had sent them to kill me. And so when they get out of the car, I start screaming that I know the devil sent them to kill me. And I'm just being like, and I had, like, for me, there was no fight. It was like, I was ready to martyr myself. You know what I mean? It was like, to me, the victory was to go ahead and kill me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I'm taking the higher ground.
The
Yeah.
higher road.
And so these cops were so fucking freaked out. They're like, one guy's got the hand on his gun and like circles around his side. The other guy's going like, "K, calm down." And he's like, he gets me to lie, and I'm screaming like, yeah, I'm screaming like, go ahead and fucking kill me. I'm not gonna beg for my life.
Oh my god.
These cops are all fucking freaked out. They're like, get down on the ground. And so I got down on the ground, and he goes like behind me to like cuff me.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as he grabbed one of my arms, I just like sort of spasmed or something. I didn't try to fight back. But like, whatever I did, he freaked out and jumped back. And so I jumped up and started yelling some crazy shit. And he just pulled out his pepper spray and started like into my face.
All for running around naked in your own yard.
Well, and I was screaming that I knew the devil sent him, and I was telling him to kill me. And I had blood smeared all over, like.
They can't see our screen, unfortunately, but I think they got all the audio there. Something lagged there with OBS. But what's so funny about that too is like, it's not like you were homicidal, saying I know the devil sent you, I'm gonna kill you. No, you were like, if the devil sent you, go ahead and kill me. So it's like you weren't even threatening them. You were basically just threatening yourself.
Well, and I didn't even see it as a threat. To me, it was martyrdom, which...
Right.
Okay, and I guess sometimes people focus on martyrdom the wrong way. We get atheistic about it, where you look at a martyr and you're like, oh, it's so horrible they died that way. But if it's really what they believe, then martyrdom isn't a horrible thing at all. Like, the transformation of that. So, yeah, no, to me, the moment was full of promise and reward to be martyred. And pain was like an irrelevant cost. Although I'm very fortunate, and I feel I don't feel I earned the positive aspect of my psychosis. It's been there from the beginning that I would connect to very, very good things. And that when I experienced demons, it was like opposed to me because I helped someone else through a psychotic break. And I'll just be vague. But they had a total psychotic break at my place. I was like trying to take care of them and help them get some sleep. And they went in the exact opposite mode where they jumped up screaming that they were possessed by the devil. And they were threatening to rape and kill me. And we had a long time of them freaking out, running all over the place, and me trying to keep either of us from getting hurt. And it ended with that person. It was February, like the middle of the night. It ended with that person running off naked into the woods. And I had to call my dad. My dad called the cops, and they had to go in and get the person out. And they almost lost toes. They didn't, but they almost lost toes from being out there in the cold. And so, But when I look at the difference between me and that person, it's like, it wasn't under either of our control what we connect to.
Right.
When we shift like that. So I feel very fortunate, as much as I've been through some really difficult things, and as much as before I got my shit under control, you still wouldn't want me as a neighbor. I wasn't being productive back then. I was still a destructive force back then, thinking I was doing good.
Right.
I progressed from there, but yeah, it wasn't my own doing. I was blessed that my psychosis contained more angels than demons, and not everybody gets that.
Wow. Yeah, I was reading about psychosis this morning and those intense manic states that can come. And one of the things that was said in this depth psychological text was that they were talking about the archetypal kernel is so hypercharged that when the person starts tapping into that energy within themselves, there's no perspective from other parts of themselves. And they were saying the ego gets overrun, basically, like the normal, healthy ego, which is a word that I don't tend to use anymore for psychological purposes, but they use the word ego a lot. How that ego part of you that is responsible for your everyday consciousness, the habitual modes of your being, gets overtaken by this other personality, basically. And then you no longer have perspective. It's like most people, when they're having a really neurotic state, and the difference usually between neurosis and psychosis is in neurosis, you have like self-awareness and you have, capabilities of coping, even if it's really difficult, or even if you're super stressed. It's not, the stakes aren't the same. And what was really interesting though is that in that experience, you're losing perspective of the other parts of you. So it's like most people think, oh, I'm really upset right now and I'm really angry at this person. And then you have other parts of you that start chiming in. Well, yeah, but we don't want to be a dick, or, think about your future. So you have multiple personalities trying to manage the situation. So what it seems to be happening with a psychotic break is that all that gets constrained down to one personality. Is that true to your experience?
One or a couple.
A couple?
But yes, you lose that influence of everything else, but also you detach from other people's experiences. Like, nobody else's experience is real unless they agree with your experience. It almost feels solipsistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like the early on experiences for me, where other people's thoughts and emotions aren't valid anymore, and they're just confused and they seem empty and not real at times. But that was just early on. Now I've learned to engage that without disconnecting from all the other sub-personalities. And the same way that I was completely sucked into a very disastrous, and again, also for me, like the same as my friend's breakdown had him running off into the frozen woods and could have died, I also would have died if I hadn't been taken into the hospital. I wasn't eating, wasn't sleeping at all. And at that point I was walking around bleeding unaware of it. So I was also, that would have killed me. However, it's the same function within me that today allowed me, I spent like that hour I spent meditating and doing some magical practice today, I would say for a good half an hour of that, I was entirely in another place. Mm-hmm. As powerful as that psychosis, but I was intentionally choosing how to get there. And I was choosing to focus down and quiet my other sub-personalities and go in there to have the experience I wanted to experience. And it very much, like, I don't know enough how to describe that phenomenologically. It's as though I spent a half hour in another dimension today. It cool. Felt as real as those psychotic breaks feel. And I have no idea if I'm actually astral projecting somewhere or if I'm having a delusion of it. That doesn't matter to me. I examine the benefits and risks of it on both sides. It's a wonderful mystery what's going on, but years and years and years of practicing these spiritual and magical things has gotten me to where what once could just tear through my life now is an opportunity for experiences that for most people it would be closest to as if a movie came to life and you were suddenly experiencing traveling to Oz.
Wow. I'm going to say hi to some people here. We've got Andrea with the bangs. Welcome, Andrea. I know you did a great podcast with Mercury on our channel, so it's really fantastic to see you. How's your channel going? I'm curious to see how things are going over there. Potato! Welcome, Potato. I seem to remember last year I had to put a restriction on Potato, and then somehow it expired. So welcome back, Potato. We're glad you're here. Adela, darling, so glad you're here. Obviously, Andrew, Joey. I think we said hi to everybody else. Gusto, Spencer, Undertone Man, Gloff. I think we covered everybody. Mariah, did I say that already? Anyways, just wanted to say hi.
And great to see you, Andrew, or Andrea. I just want to throw out the invitation again. I'm trying to do as much content as I can get myself to do. So if you want to come back on sometime coming up, just let me know. I had a great time talking to you, and I'd be happy to do some more content with you anytime you're interested.
Daniel is here. Martin. Anne. What? Someone just said wait. JP died, question mark? That's news to me if you're talking about Jordan Peterson. I can look up Jordan
Well,
Peterson.
that's coming from Potato saying rip Jordan Peterson. He died too young, and I don't wish to insult Potato, but I'm not certain he's going to be providing us with accurate information.
Yeah. If you see a comment from Potato, just assume that it's not true. No offense, Potato. We love that you're here. And you're welcome to continue trolling on as long as you stay within the bounds of our requests. Yeah. Okay. So let's get back to phenomenology, because we seem to have gotten this situation in our modern society where we've begun to value the objective facts about the world as more important than the phenomenological facts about our experience. And yes, solipsism is always a danger, because if you invest yourself so totally in the idea that your experience is the ultimate say on what's true, then that can be damaging to other people's experience, and after all, to the shared world that we have to cooperate as social beings. So on the other hand, it's like you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's a way that you can maintain that phenomenological allegiance without giving up facts about the world. And so it's like this dance that you have to do. You have to be able to be okay with that contradiction, this paradox that you have to hold inside of yourself. And a lot of the cornerstones of wisdom teachings are typically paradoxical. There's always these both ends, this yin and yang situation. So if we could take a phenomenological approach that also honors an objective world that is scientifically apprehendable, then I think that we're really moving in the right direction.
Also, that reminds me of, is it called the Gini coefficient, where they found it wasn't the overall wealth, like average wealth, that indicated crime. The problem isn't how much money a country does or doesn't have. It's that the larger the discrepancy between the rich and poor, the greater the poverty. I might have it wrong, but I'm thinking it was like the Gini
I've heard
coefficient.
this, but I don't know the technicalities of it.
Okay, but anyway, my thought was that it's the same thing when it comes to really prizing your own perspective, or with connecting to God and having all the messianic aspects to that some people have with whatever mental illness or unique shamanic entity they are. It's fine to realize that you're God if you're not creating that Gini coefficient where you are and others aren't. It's okay as long as you recognize others are. And
Right.
It's okay to find your own phenomenological experience and your own personal truth to be very precious. But you've got to balance that by finding other people's phenomenological experiences being equally as precious.
Exactly.
So you don't create conflict.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. That's absolutely huge. Actually, I'm going to try to find a clip real quick, but first I just will say I want to leave you with this to chew on. So one of the things I was thinking about too, about how the objective kind of post-Cartesian worldview has changed our psychology, is just think about like when you look at the moon, let's take the moon. When you look at the moon, you know that moon is a rock floating around, orbiting the Earth, and you have scientific information about what the moon is, right? And you understand that the cycles and all the information that we've gathered as a humanity, the average layperson just has a basic understanding of the moon. So what happens is that instead of looking at the moon and imagining what what the possibilities of that moon are, or creating a mythology of the moon, right? Like a ancient primitive society might. Because we have this overlay of facts about what the moon is, it strips us of the imaginative relationship with that phenomena, and that can be damaging to our ensouled reality, to our ability to live in the present moment and enjoy the world around us, because we're constantly dealing with, oh, that's just another tree, that's just a moon, and there's no mythological underpinning that's kind of supporting us to enjoy or to have this landscape of good and evil to look out on, or whatever these mythological structures might have provided. So I always like to experiment as a phenomenologist myself, is how can you have a relationship with these aspects of our world and actually reimagine what they are? Like, can you have a conversation with the moon? Can you imagine how beautiful that moon is, and how it might have a feminine nature, or what mystical aspects you might project onto it? And to me, even though the objective side of me isn't sitting there thinking, yeah, this is automatically all real, there's a way in which that lever, if you pull it, kind of deepens you into a sense of beautiful ground being creativity that you wouldn't otherwise be able to access if you were just operating on viewing the world based on accumulation of facts. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I get what you mean, how sometimes to gather more scientific facts about the moon, it's almost like, okay, so a planet can have both gravity and electromagnetic field. And you could imagine that at a certain point, we would understand the gravity of the planet, but we wouldn't understand the electromagnetic field of the planet. But because we understand both, and because we focus so much on how we scientifically understand the moon, we assume that because we don't also have the scientific explanation for Selene, that she can't be there either, or whichever name or manifestation of the moon goddess you choose. And just because we've discovered the gravity and electromagnetic field doesn't mean that there isn't more there that we just don't have a scientific understanding of, or that there aren't aspects of this world and of the moon where the idea of a scientific understanding, in fact, just doesn't make sense. The more I can learn the scientific truths about, and objective truths about the moon, without it stripping it of what else it might be, what else it might be capable of doing. And yeah, I feel no need to limit. In fact, the more I get into it, I'm having trouble now understanding why people are finding that limit. I see where the deep scientific understanding of reality and the very mythical, phenomenological experience, spiritual experiences seem to fit together to me to create something.
Mm.
I don't see them in conflict at all. I see them in conflict like in people, but yes. I don't see the actual principles in conflict.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, your video's freezing up for me occasionally, but you've been coming through fine on audio.
Okay, good. Yeah, we're just dealing with those old lag issues. Yeah. I think that it's time to learn how to hold for me at least, multiple worldviews. And you're right. It's like for a lot of people, there's these contradictions that can't simultaneously be true. But I think learning how to deal with that ambiguity and that overall tension is it's a hallmark of soul development, and learning how to be in contradiction and messiness and still be okay, and still be able to hold that both end perspective rather than that either or. And that both end perspective can honor multiple streams of information and still find itself not overly invested in one area or another, but taking that information in and creating this more gestalt perspective on life. And so that's how I really love that, because
There's also
go ahead.
I was just going to say there's also two ways of knowing something. So, for instance, if instead we move down to the ocean, and again, our scientific understanding of gravity now explains the waves of the ocean. And we can map the waves, mathematically. You could work out and understand so much about the waves of the ocean. But then there's also the surfer who understands the waves of the ocean in a completely different way.
Yes.
And who knows how to move with and live with and act with what's there that a mathematician might understand in a way he doesn't. So there's also that way of connecting. There's both ways. You can study the math of the ocean, but then you can also just get a surfboard and learn to feel the ocean, learn to work with it in ways that just aren't explainable scientifically.
Yes. Yeah. And I think ultimately what we're talking about here is permission to imagine the world. And I think what the reason that, to answer your question, why do some people struggle with this, is because there hasn't been an encouraged position that says, hey, it's okay to imagine the world. It's viewed as childish. That's what kids do. They play and they make imaginary friends and they make imaginary games. And that's not what adults do, because we're supposed to be buttoned up and understand that the world is made of, matter and material, and it's more black and white, and you have to take responsibility, and that's not all. You can't do that and still have this imaginative experience. Even though I don't believe that's true, I think that's kind of the messaging that we get, is that the imagination is somehow inferior to the world of objectivity and facts and responsibility. And so I just know for me, like, going on a trail run earlier today up in the mountains, being out there, it's an imaginative experience. I'm flying through the trees. I've got the sun shining down on me. The breeze is coming across me. My mind is just opening up. I'm looking at these vast horizons and beautiful mountains, and it's almost like there's a conversation going on inside me with the landscape. I start feeling like I'm relating to the earth in a certain way. I'm relating to what's happening around me. I start feeling these beautiful sensations pulsating in my body. I empower that gratitude, and it's a conversation that's happening, a dialogue between me and this imaginal experience. And that's sacred to me, right? That's sacred to me phenomenologically, and that's a huge part of personal growth and transformation, is learning how to self-author those experiences and to access a conversation with something outside of yourself in this creative sense. And it like you said, it doesn't really matter so much what the measurements of that are and how they size up to other methodologies or theories or epistemologies. But what really matters about it is that experience that you're having is something that's sacred to your soul, something that's building into who you are as a person, and it has real effects in your life.
Also, the scientific can begin to feed back into the imaginative. So, for example, with the case of a surfer, when you add the scientific understanding that it's the moon's gravity that affects the tides, then suddenly you can connect in an imaginative way to the energy of the moon while you're riding those tides. So I find that the scientific fits in and can add a deeper level to the magic that you can see, or even the way we've always considered the moon feminine and connected to the ocean. And now we understand that it's the moon that moves the ocean. That's beautiful. It's science being up.
Right, so you can build it into a new mythology, like a meta mythology that doesn't have to be limited because of new information.
Absolutely. You can incorporate anything true should fit in to your view. Otherwise, you've got to adapt your view. Everything true should fit in.
And I think that's what Ian McGilchrist is trying to get across in his book, The Master and His Emissary, is that the right hemisphere, which is generally responsible for these gestalt experiences of wholeness and imagination and perceiving meaningful pictures of reality, and where the left brain is more, the left hemisphere is more about reducing things into bits and pieces and understanding mechanism. What he's saying is basically the master has always been that right hemisphere, but what's happened over the years is centuries is that the left hemisphere has, as the emissary, has attempted like a takeover. Basically, it has overstepped its bounds and is now doing something which it can't do, which is leading the worldview, and only the part of us that can see things as wholes can lead that, can hold that grand metaphorical picture of reality in that way. So that's kind of the situation we've been left in. Now, he also makes it a really important point that we can't look at the left and right hemisphere like the mainstream business coaching model or the mainstream life coaching model is looking at it, where they're reducing it to these really oversimplified versions of what the brain is. So he's really careful to make sure that we don't do that. And at the same time, he maintains that there are things about the right and left hemisphere that differ, and they have different specializations, and that our current society is very left hemisphere based. And so that right hemisphere, it needs a lot of work. It needs to be reintroduced. It needs to be allowed to imagine, be allowed to create. And it is the one that can, as you so aptly pointed out, it can take in that left perspective, that mechanism, and it can build meaning off of it.
Yeah, beautifully said.
We've got some comments here. I'll read. Chris says, "Do not confuse the moon with the finger pointing to the moon." It's a great classic line. Good to see you, Chris. Mariah says, "I was thinking about lunar cycles right before I opened this live. How nicely weird." That is weird. Andrew with the bank says, "Hey guys, the channel is going well. Just chatted with Benjamin Boyce on iconoclasm." Ah, interesting.
Yeah, I saw the notifications, Andrea, for that. I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet. I've been so busy lately, but I saw those notifications, and I'm looking forward to checking that out.
I'm curious what I have to check it out too, because I'm curious what aspects of iconoclasm they're talking about, like the image destroying iconoclasm of Christians that repudiate pagans, anciently speaking, or iconoclasm that just generally destroys institutions and images that came before it. So I think that's an interesting topic that I'm curious to go check out on your channel. Undertone Man says, "You guys have great deep conversations. I could listen to you all day. LOL." Awesome.
That's great. I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Yeah, me too. That's very nice to hear. We're very, very glad that you're listening. Andrea says...
Yeah, and I'm glad you caught us live this time.
Me too. Absolutely. I'm really glad you're here. Andrea says, "Yes, would love to come back. I'll have you on my show as well, Merc. I'll email you." Yeah, and I'd love to be a part of a conversation with you at some point too, Andrea. That would be fantastic. Gloff says, "Andrea, your videos are bangers." So we got to promote Andrea's channel. Go subscribe to Andrea with the bangs. She's in the chat. You can click on her icon there and it should take you over to her channel. So yeah, but what happened was when I had this epiphany about the moon, it was just one night I was walking around my neighborhood and I was looking at the moon and I was like, wow, it's amazing. And then immediately I started noticing that my brain and my mind were creating a story about, oh, the moon, I know the moon is this and that, and this is the facts I know about the moon. And I started getting into this kind of thinking mind, this analysis of what the moon is. But the first experience I was having was, oh my God, Like that thing that's just up there, that's shining brightly, and it's so white and radiant and mysterious, and then it gets squashed by this information I have about it. So it's like there's no longer an imaginative encounter happening. Now it's like, oh, I know what that is. And then you can discard it. It's like people do the same thing with trees all the time. It's like, oh, well, you've seen one tree, you've seen all the trees. But if you like really took the time to acknowledge and appreciate what it is like to just look at a tree, it's actually pretty amazing, a pretty amazing phenomenological experience that you're having. So I think we often do that a lot of times as human beings. It's easy to get caught up in using the qualifiers and the definitions that we have, the information that we have about the objects in our world, to strip away the actual connection we have with our world, right? And I think the imagination is fundamental to that connection with the world, the permission to look at it and to have wonder and curiosity, and to not just stop at, oh, I already know that. I already know these facts. And so that it opens up this whole possibility of connecting to life in a much more synchronistic and surrendered way. And then at the same time, to be careful of avoiding solipsism, you still honor the rationality, you still honor the facts about things, you still incorporate that into your worldview. It's just not that it doesn't have to be held so tightly every moment of life experience. We can shift in and out of different states depending on the need. Like sometimes it's time to just surrender and allow more of a meditative brain state to come on, while at other times it's time to analyze, it's time to break things down into bits and pieces and understand the mechanisms. So knowing time, context, and time and place, it doesn't really serve me when I'm on a nice leisurely walk to break the moon down into bits and pieces, right? What serves me is to actually have a deep experience of connection with my environment. And I think that's really tragically missing right now in our world.
Yeah, and I think what you said about how we denigrate imagination in adults also is unfortunate, because I think that's one of the ways that we're made in the likeness of God. Like when you look at us and what differentiates us from the rest of nature, it's really our ability to imagine. And given that God creates by speaking words, what precedes a word is a thought. And our ability to imagine, or even just my ability to close my eyes and be somewhere other than I am now, is a godlike ability. My ability to create meaning and all these frameworks is a godlike ability. And everything that we achieve scientifically comes first from our imagination. The science grew from our imagination. It's not the reverse. So I think we have a lot of natural resource within us that we don't make use of when we ignore the godlike power of imagination.
Beautifully said. And honestly, if you think about any innovative field in our modern day, typically there's a significantly imaginative approach to any advance that moves the needle further for society. You know, just how could someone possibly invent an airplane or an automobile? There's a way in which you have to allow this image to come to you. It's not just like, oh, I need bits and pieces of information so I can then invent. No, you need a vision. Like you need an imaginative direction, and then the bits and pieces organize themselves around that vision. So the methodology organizes itself around the greater whole. If, on the other hand, you tried to make an invention, but you had no vision, you would have is mechanism, and you wouldn't even know what you were trying to make, because you had no projective capacity to think, oh, like I see this possibility in my mind's eye of this contraption that could potentially serve a function. You wouldn't even have that. So it would be a non-starter.
And even on the other side, because that's sort of on the invention and engineering side, but even on the research side, you wouldn't discover something like gravity or mathematical formulas or any scientific thing if you didn't first imagine that there was something there to discover. It's all driven by imagination initially. You have to
Right.
imagine there's something inside those numbers worth discovering, or that there's some principle at work invisible to everyone else that you might be able to tease out of the universe with your mind.
Exactly. Exactly. Beautifully said. I gotta rename this talk "The Power of Imagination."
Sure.
I'm gonna do that right now. Cool. Any comments worth reading?
I don't know. I'll check. So Kloff's pointing out the connection between Moon and Lunatic. Patty
Nice,
says,
Luna.
"Hey, Pat, I always think about what's happening underneath the ground when thinking about the beauty and mystery of trees." Yes, that's a great thing to meditate on in nature as well. Everything going on below the surface, holding us up.
I love that. That's amazing.
And Andrea says, "Got to get going here, guys, but we'll listen to the rest." I love this conversation, and I've been thinking about all of these things quite a bit lately. I'm really glad you could join us, Andrea. And yeah, anytime you want us over on your channel, well, my schedule is more open than Ryan's, but I'll make time anytime you want to either come on the channel or host me over at your place. I'm really glad to see you. I hope you have a great day.
Nice. I found a cool picture for a thumbnail for our video now. It's cool. It looks like this it's very imaginative. You'll see. See if it works.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, Andrea, thank you for tuning in, and I would love to speak with you as well at some point. So let's keep the connection open. All right. What else? Undertow Man says, "I'm a fellow lunatic too." Lunatic love, Merc. Share the lunatic love.
Oh, welcome. Yeah, much lunatic love right back at you, Undertone Man.
You know, if you really think about like how
I've been hosting watch parties recently. I don't know when the next one will.
No, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, I think we've got a lag now is why we're talking over each other. But I was just going to throw out a quick invite to Undertone Man that I've been hosting some Zoom parties recently that have been going really well. If you're someone shy or if you have any social anxiety, feel free to join us with your mic and camera turned off. But lately we've been going through the TV show. We watched a few movies. We had one where we just talked the entire time. And lately we've been going through the TV show Doom Patrol. We watch 1 or 2 episodes and then we hang out and talk for hours. They typically go for between 4 and 7 hours. So I don't know when the next one will be, but if you join our Discord, you'll definitely get the announcements. And yeah, like it's nice to have you here live today. You said you've been watching for a while. If you want to get even more interactive with the community, we'd love to have you, whether you want to just watch silently or participate. Oh, right. And yeah, so for anyone hearing that also, we've watched the first 5 episodes. So the next party will be watching episode 6, in case anyone wants to get caught up. Woo! And it's the TV show Doom Patrol.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I was just checking because I was making sure our lag wasn't interfering with the stream. It looks like people are still seeing us on the screen. I had to look on my phone because my monitor here wasn't showing me the data. Anyways, how's Andrew doing? I know he's in there somewhere. I wonder how he's doing. Didn't someone ask us, do we still keep in touch with Andrew? Yes, we do keep in touch with Andrew.
Yeah, and then Andrew showed up. And yeah, I was talking to Andrew right before, so I won't give away any personal details, but Andrew's having an excellent day. And yeah, and he's Yeah, he's been saying this now. So he's working on some videos for his channel, Tarot for Self-Knowledge. So anyone who's not subscribed to that channel, subscribe to Andrew's channel, and I think you can look forward to some excellent content at one point there.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that, seeing what his next adventure is like. Yeah. Wow. Well, we started this with just the intention of catching up, and then it turned into an interesting discussion. It's always funny how when you just start the stream with no agenda and then a topic kind of formulates itself out of it, and then you have to go back and like, oh, this is what the title should have been, instead of trying to create something to think about and then trying to force yourself to talk about it. A lot of times when it just happens naturally, it feels a lot more, it feels more fluid, something you just trust the process. The problem with the natural approach is that you don't front load it with this kind of marketing mindset where you're trying to attract a certain amount of views or you're trying to get an audience, and so you just kind of you're not playing the cards as professionally, so to speak. And at the same time, it's like, God, you know what? Fuck that. Because sometimes, yeah, that's great. We got to do that sometimes, and we want to create those types of videos. And at the same time, sometimes just shooting the shit and just hanging out is where it's at.
Actually, that's how I've done all of this. Like, I'm never thinking of it from a marketing perspective. And even when I put more effort into a title or a thumbnail or something like that, I'm never thinking of it. And I've taken courses in marketing in college, but I just don't think from that part of me at all. It's
Right.
just about, what do I like? Like, I just make the thumbnail what I want to look at. Or for a lot of it, I've just fallen into it by accident. So I've realized afterwards that going live on full moons from a marketing perspective is good. I'm attaching the idea of a moon to my live streams that will create that thought in people's heads. But that was an accident. It was just, I was more comfortable paying attention to the moon than the calendar. Or the way I write Lunatic Live on my thumbnails. I do that because the very first time you had made my first thumbnail for a full moon. And then my next one was something, it was just a picture. And for the next one, I wanted to try to put Lunatic Live on it. And I just used the most basic function where it says draw on photo. And I didn't even realize I could change colors or anything, but I just used my fingertip and wrote Lunatic Live on it, thinking that was really pathetic way to make a thumbnail, but it's better than nothing. And it was all I could do because I'm shitty with computers. And I've gotten feedback recently that some people have asked what font I use to make those, or have said that they really like the way I write it. And it has created a nice visual, and I've sort of made a bit of a brand with the way I write Lunatic Live with the moon, but none of that was intentional. That was all a combination of accidental, or when I'm picking images, I never think of what's popular, what's going to get attention. I just think of expressing myself in the moment.
Yeah.
So if I'm feeling depressed, I'll pick a picture of frozen trees under a moon, things like that. But yeah, I don't think of it from that marketing perspective at all for anything I do.
I really like your thumbnails. I've actually found myself wishing that you would make all of our thumbnails, because I like the way you make your thumbnails.
All I do is grab an image off Google and then draw Lunatic Live with my finger. A week ago, I realized I could change the color. I thought I only had the option of white. And just yesterday, I realized I can also change the size of the lines, which is great. Because up till now, I didn't realize that. So sometimes it was like they're too thick, or sometimes they seem a little too thin.
Right.
But, so I'm going to be able to keep doing that.
That's cool.
Also, writing Lunatic Live like that with my fingertip feels like a signature now when I do it.
Cool. That's awesome.
Although, on the subject of thumbnails, I love the one Nolan made for that clip of you. Something about looking for wisdom within you, and Nolan made.
Oh yeah, he made an awesome thumbnail.
And yeah, and both, so to both Shane and Nolan, and like just to say publicly, so glad to have you on board. You guys are fantastic to work with. You've been doing
Agreed.
a great job with your thumbnails, clips, and yeah, both of you have done some animation with the sorting logo that is amazing. I'm really looking forward to starting using those. So thanks again for coming on board, guys. And anyone in the community who appreciates how much I've been doing lately, I can't do any of this shit without help. The reason we have volunteers is because I need a babysitter to run a party. I need other people to upload and edit. So, yeah, anyone who's directing gratitude towards me and Ryan, without Grizz and now Nolan and Shane, you wouldn't have gotten a lot of this content. They're responsible for it behind the scenes.
Yeah,
And
they're doing
me and
great
Ryan are getting
stuff.
all the glory.
They're doing awesome stuff for us. It's much appreciated. Gloff wants to know how you're feeling since the spring is rolling around and how your moods are.
Past couple days, my mood's been fantastic. I'm, yeah, just in a fantastic mood. Partly spring, partly, I have a new private magical project I'm starting that's going very well, and I won't describe any details of it because that's part of what keeps the power working properly, but it's been going really, really well. Weather's getting nicer. I've been, yeah, feeling fantastic the past couple days.
That's great, man. That's so good to hear. Well, I don't have anything else to talk about. I don't have any. My mind is not currently generating content for people.
That feels satisfying, like the end of a meal. Like, I feel satisfied. That feels like a complete conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you everyone for tuning in, allowing us to check in with each other. We just wanted to catch up because we hadn't had a chance to talk in a couple days, so we thought might as well do it live. I hope everyone's doing okay out there with this chaos going on in the world. And
right, and speaking of which, also join our Discord. And I'm getting more involved with the channel. I've opened up. Anyone who wants to message me directly, I'll answer direct messages on Discord. And if anyone's struggling at the moment, whatever the fuck you're going through, you can talk to me about anything. I'm making myself available for private sessions with people as well, if anyone needs any help.
nice. Awesome. All right, everybody. We'll be back soon as we can.